Well, I don't tend to get prescriptive, but one thing that I do think about is, can we notice where we see renewal? And can that be kind of encouragement to us? So just take, for example, something like a prescribed burn, or perhaps a wildfire that even got out of control, caused tremendous disaster, lives lost, houses lost. Can we learn something in the wake of those kinds of disasters that about the Earth's ability to renew itself, or about new growth and a way that people navigate through such terrible disasters? So I think, to me, it comes down to, do we let destruction be the only soundtrack? Or do we allow in and even encourage as a much smaller or a more quiet voice that we can activate by noticing new growth after a wildfire, for example? Some major disaster, how did people make it through? By telling stories of people who survived. And I think, in a way, that idea of survival needs to be there with if we're going to continue using apocalypse as destruction, then we want to be sure that we have paired that with all the features of these stories that have to do with survival.
If you believe it absolutely literally, that it could happen in your lifetime, it could happen in your, children's youth or whatever, then maybe the instinct is not to prepare so much for the future. But I never see that. I see this sort of strange selfishness in the Christian community in Iran, which I'll talk about more in a minute, as well as in the Christian community when we were refugees in Italy and Dubai, and then also in the more settled Christian community in Oklahoma, where we ended up. In all those places, they believed in the rapture, but never did it stop them from preparing for their own future, for their children's future. Nobody said, well, we don't need to save up for college. Nobody said, well, I should not think about my career. I should live sort of in God's imminence, here on earth while I have this time, because the after will take care of itself. I will never have to live to old age. Nobody thought that. They still had their retirement savings, which, if you truly do believe, I think the first thing that should go is any urge to retire or to save for retirement. But it didn't. On the other hand, the thing that it gave people permission to let go of was any concern for other people's future, for future generations, for the earth, for, the climate, for perhaps, animals and our grandchildren and whoever is left behind. Because if they were left behind, either they're unfaithful or, there won't be any progeny beyond a certain generation, and so on and so forth. So I find it, I guess, with my adult mind, really interesting that it didn't keep anyone from doing the selfish kind of planning and the nesting and the building that would benefit themselves in their old age. But it did kind of make them stop worrying about the bees.
Do you think in some ways that it actually allowed people to be self-serving more?
Well, yeah, just exactly in the way I just said. But also, I think that there was this, externality from this sort of belief of kind of like, in economics, you've got the community good problem, the public good problem, where, if something is a public good and it's everyone's duty to maintain together, it benefits each person so much more to take more than their share from it and to give very little, because they think of their particular nibble from the public good to not really be something that affects the whole. It's like recycling. People don't recycle because what's this one milk carton going to do to the environment? And I think it sort of makes you think along those lines much more, because you think, well, the environment, yes, it is on that trajectory, but there will be a moment where there's, a God from the machine. There's a moment of, the hand of God coming in and freeing everyone who believes in him from the consequences of that not caring, of not taking on public responsibility for public good. So I think in that way, it made people so selfish.